spirit of service, which is at the heart of Dr. Martin Luther King and the meaning of this great national holiday. So I would like to extend many thanks to each of you who give yourselves to the good of our community. Thank you very much. Now, another great part of my job here today is to introduce our speaker. And our keynote speaker today is an exceptional lady, an exceptional person, Ms. Gina Abercrombie-Winstanley. A distinguished diplomat, foreign policy advisor and consultant. She's an expert in Middle East affairs, counterterrorism, and cybersecurity. So we all better pay attention. She represented President Barack Obama as ambassador to the Republic of Malta from 2012 to 2016, serving longer than anyone else in that role. Ambassador Abercrombie-Winstanley is our own. She was born here in Cleveland Heights, attended Cleveland Heights High School, but then she went on with her educational journey to Israel, graduated from George Washington University, and earned her master's degree at Johns Hopkins University. Now, if that is not enough, then she joins the diplomatic corps. In 1985, and she was posted in Iraq, Indonesia, Egypt, and Israel. In Washington, she served as a special assistant to Secretary of State on the staff of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Director of Legislative Affairs at the U.S. National Security Council, and Director for the Arabian Peninsula. Now, she was also the first woman to lead a mission in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. There, she was even cited for acts of courage during a deadly terrorist attack on the consulate in Jeddah. Most recently, she has been foreign policy advisor to the U.S. Cybersecurity Command, and in all her roles, she has been a passionate defender of diversity in race, gender, and sexual orientation. And on a personal note, my first opportunity to meet the ambassador was during a recent event here in Cleveland, where we discovered that we share a common passion for Middle East, for that part of the world that is deeply challenged, very diverse, and very much in need of help and tolerance. We're honored to have her joining us today, so please welcome Ambassador Gina Abercrombie-Winstanley.
Good morning. So the first thing I want to do is say thank you very much, Dr. Mihaljevic, and to everyone who put together this amazing program. I am delighted to be here because it is an important way for the clinic to connect with the community that it serves, us. So let's give them all a warm round of applause. Thank you. I'm grateful for this opportunity to be with you here today on this day of renewal. This day that we remember and honor the legacy and service of the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His work and that of all the unsung heroes of our civil rights movement changed our nation. We know from their example that all effort, great or small, can have impact. Martin Luther King Jr. personified the term servant leader. That is, to put others' well-being before your own quest for power. His sacrifices and accomplishments and those of America's early activists were great. But there's more for us to do. The mantle is ours now. And I am gratified to be among so many who are both leaders and servants, caregivers in our community. In pursuing the ideals of servant leadership, I have had the privilege to work my way up in the U.S. Diplomatic Corps, and as Dr. Mihaljevic mentioned, serve as President Obama's personal representative. I'm privileged and proud to have begun that journey here in Ohio, and like many of you, as Dr. Mihaljevic mentioned, I'm a homegirl from Cleveland. I studied under great educators from Shaker Heights, Cleveland Heights, and Cleveland public schools. And I owe my accomplishments to some of the finest public servants in this community. I had parents, teachers, and mentors like you who opened my eyes to the wider world and helped me understand that I might have a meaningful role in it. I had mentors, parents, and teachers like you who believed in my abilities and taught me to believe in myself. And I had teachers, mentors, and parents like you from east and west of the city who advocated volunteerism and who practiced what they preached. Many of these people had no idea of their impact on me, and through me, on others. Once it was an honorary aunt, I suspect paid by my mother, who really pressed me on what I was going to do with my life and made me think about it really clearly. Once it was a neighbor who had an art gallery and introduced me to his love of African and Asian art. He never knew it, but he ignited my passion for travel and my interest in turning strangers into friends. And once, it was me overhearing a friend's mother cautioning her from spending too much time with me because she didn't think I'd amount to much. I remember that one very well. All of these people and more instilled in me a commitment to service, a commitment to what we call paying it forward. That commitment started my world travels and brought me home again. The inspiring legacy of Dr. King is a solid reminder that we may never know the full impact of the work that we do. Even as we are simply trying to do our best, we may never know how much some gesture, some action or word from us healed a wound or sparked a fire in someone else. So today, as I share my journey, I ask that you reflect on your own journey of service. And as we continue to fight for Dr. King's vision of what we and our nation, indeed the world, can be, it's important that we mark our struggles, those times when we feared that our efforts were unhelpful, went unnoticed or unappreciated. It's important that we recognize our successes, those times when the fruits of our labor paid off in the benefit of someone else or a group of people. And finally, we are here today to celebrate the joy of service itself and to renew our spirit for the challenges ahead. Because people, this work is hard. Whether in our personal lives or in our workplaces, or standing up to be counted for the larger battles that are facing us today, it is so much easier to keep quiet, to stay home. But we know there is no denying that we have more work to do. It's why we honor the quote that we have before us today. As Dr. King said, no work is insignificant. All labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. I hear my mother and father in my ears with that. None of us would be here today if we did not understand the full importance of that statement. Like you, in my personal journey, I have strived to be judged on the content of my character. I have been tested many times, in many ways, large and small. And I have tried to do my best, but I have not always emerged victorious. As a young diplomat, a Midwestern girl from modest means, I strive to be equated with excellence. I came to understand that my contributions from my background and experiences broaden the array of options that might lead to success. But I had to learn to make my voice heard. Sometimes I had to overcome the resistance, curiosity of foreigners who weren't expecting me when they made an appointment with a US diplomat. Sometimes I had to overcome resistance from my own colleagues who questioned my suitability for my chosen profession. I was frustrated by colleagues and bosses at times who underestimated my ability to contribute to solutions. And I didn't always handle that frustration well, but I had to learn to trust that those who sent me out in the world to succeed knew what they were doing. I had to bring my perspectives to the table with confidence. You know what I mean. It's something that all of us face from time to time and have to master. Shortly after I arrived at my first overseas assignment, one of my most difficult in war-torn Iraq, a colleague told me that the senior staff from the embassy had met and that one of them had announced my arrival as the new head of consular affairs. That's a person who handles visa, immigration issues, and American citizen services. And then he cautioned them that I was a woman and Black. And I was told that there were groans around the table because they were about to be burdened with what must be substandard me. That's the kind of knowledge that breeds and feeds self-doubt. That's the kind of information that can get you defeated before you even begin. And yet I was there to serve and to be part of the solution. So, as a US consul, though I was young and newly trained, I was empowered to negotiate a treaty with the Iraqis to ease travel hurdles for Americans and Iraqis living under Saddam Hussein's rule, if I could. And though it was clear to me that I was not expected to succeed, I used the example of Dr. King and combined it with the training, patience, and tenacity that I came with, and respect for my partners to get the work done. And we achieved an agreement that significantly eased lives in Iraq. This Cleveland girl focused on maintaining Dr. King's noted painstaking excellence in her career. And I spoke to Indonesian students about American ideals regarding rights and democracy in Indonesian. I monitored national elections and exchanged views on the importance of voting with Egyptians in Arabic. I sat with refugees and those who kept them that way in the Gaza Strip and in Malta, and I made clear that American values meant that they would not be forgotten or forsaken. And in different parts of the world, I heeded Martin Luther King's words that no work is insignificant. As a US diplomat abroad, I was proud to advocate for environmental protections and also joined my embassy colleagues with gloves and trash bags and the local staff, and we cleaned up parks and we cleaned up beaches. American diplomats are showcasing American values around the world by advocating for universal education, and we are also tutoring students one-on-one in our off hours. As Dr. King said, all work that uplifts humanity has dignity. In what was to become the most difficult assignment of my career, indeed my life, I was sent as the first woman to lead a diplomatic mission in Saudi Arabia, the most conservative nation in the world with regard to women. And while I was there, I traveled the country widely. When I was not meeting with government officials, I was visiting hospitals and factories and schools, many, many schools. And I spoke often there about not letting others' expectations for you or of you hold you back. I spoke for myself and I spoke for others who needed encouragement to break down barriers. And during my travels, I was often greeted warmly and humbled by that welcome. Young Saudi women were especially inspiring. They shared with me how encouraged they were to see me, an African-American woman, in a position of leadership. And their excitement about the possibilities of their futures was palpable. And I was proud to be that example of what we say in this country we stand for, and to help ensure that those who represent America around the world look like America. But over time, I grew also to understand that our American advocacy for those human rights that Dr. King demanded for us all, civil rights, women's rights, open education, and equality in opportunity and in the receipt of justice, that advocacy angered people in the country as well. To some of these extremists, as a leader of this diplomatic mission, I represented something ugly, something frightening and wrong. The rights and privileges that they accepted as their birthright were not for people, were not for others, not for women, not for people of differing faiths. And we know from our own history, and indeed our present, that those who are intent upon keeping the status quo, those who want to keep wrongs unrighted, those people are willing to use violence to do so. Around the world, we saw it in Paris, in Quebec, and in Beirut too many times. And here at home, we've seen it in Charleston, in Charlottesville, in Orlando, and in Pittsburgh. Sometimes the victims were the wrong color, or the wrong sexual orientation, or the wrong gender, the wrong religion. Sometimes they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Good people standing up for what's right. Sometimes good people just trying to live their lives. So we faced extremists in Saudi Arabia because we had a job to do, and life became difficult for everyone at our mission. Our diplomatic staff labored under constant threats to carry out our duties. And some may question if we as Americans had the right to challenge conditions outside of our own country. But as Dr. King said in his breathtaking letter from a Birmingham jail, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. But while we were advocating for universal rights and freedoms, extremists were calling for our expulsion and death. For safety reasons, we were ordered to evacuate all non-essential personnel from the mission, and every parent who remained at post had to do so without their children and without their spouse. My own children at the time, I hope I don't cry, my own children at the time were 6 and 9. And like every other family member ordered to evacuate, my husband was given 3 days to quit his job, pack up their belongings, pull them from school, and put them on a plane with him out of the country. So while serving our nation, we spent 18 months apart. And it took years for us to recover as a family, but this is part of service. Too few know that this has become a typical story for American diplomats, for civilian representatives overseas. And although it never occurred to any of us to make a different choice, as all of us here know, when one family member serves, the entire family serves, at whatever level that you're working in. And the family sacrifices, and we shouldn't forget that. So during these difficult times and others, we often had before us the example of Dr. Martin Luther King, and I drew on his wisdom and spirit as I led my staff. The example of the heroes and sheroes that he led in the face of indifference and opposition helped us stay resolute. When people rejected our message and threatened us with violence, we hung in there. And the reality was that from the chief of mission to the waiters in our snack bar, we were all in the same danger once we walked through those front doors. And when the terrorists attacked us in 2004, they didn't ask about beliefs or background or nationality before they killed. And their hate left 15 of our colleagues dead or injured, and devastated their friends their colleagues, and loved ones. And as we consoled each other and honored our dead and put our lives together to get back to work, no one quit. Not an American staff member, not a local employee. And like colleagues from too many places, places like Kenya, just this week, Tanzania, Yemen, Libya, we knew why we were there. We knew what we stood for, and we refused to be cowed. We understood that in our own small way, like you, we were part of the effort that Dr. King spoke about, uplifting humanity. Afterwards, there was considerable international attention, words of condolence, awards, but those small gestures that also took place at that time were so important. And one that I remember to this day came from a very kind Saudi gentleman who didn't know anyone at the mission. And he sent over a huge box of toiletries for our Marines. Those brave young men lost everything they had when the terrorists burned down their quarters during the attack. Our Marines lost big-ticket items that insurance eventually replaced, but also small personal items that could never be replaced. But if you could have seen the grins on their faces when they opened that box and in the midst of undershirts and soap, and they pulled out toothbrushes, a small gesture easily overlooked, but someone thought of it, someone remembered. And when they saw them and recognized the gesture behind it, they were re-energized and uplifted. Now today, we are assaulted by horrendous acts and petty unkindnesses. And as a nation, we have done better and we can do better. Each of us must seize an opportunity both in word and deed to uplift humanity through the work that we do. The foundation of today's quote really is respect and dignity for the other. That's it. And with those watchwords, we can renew our commitment to service, to carry out acts that we know will have impact. And for that alone, it's worth doing. Again, no work is insignificant. All labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. Dr. King, we can do this. Thank you.
I think I can speak on behalf of all of us. Thank you so much for your kind and uplifting words. And thank you much more so for the service to our country. You have handled it with grace, every single obstacle, for the big ones over there to the small ones over here, with the grace and elegance. So thank you very much. And I would also like to extend my thanks to all of you for coming today and making this a wonderful morning for all of us. Now, I would like to invite the Voices of Praise Gospel Choir to lead us in song.